Hey guys, Rick and Laura here with Legal Talk Tuesday, and we have been talking this month about divorce. June is a pretty high month for filings for divorce for various reasons, and so we want to kind of give you some advice to help you navigate that. We know that going through a divorce can be really overwhelming. There's a lot of uncertainties, but working with your divorce lawyer should not be one of those uncertainties. So today we are going to kind of talk to you a little bit about the 5 things that you should be asking your divorce lawyer.
So first thing is you need to be asking and talking about how you're going to communicate with your attorney. Communication is one of the biggest complaints that clients have about their lawyers, poor communication, that is. Your case is important and it should be treated that way. So sometimes there's a legitimate reason why you may not hear from your attorney for a period of time because maybe nothing's happening in your case. But if you do reach out to them and they don't respond, that's really unacceptable. So if you don't hear back from them for weeks, or we've heard lately, sometimes it's been a month or longer and they're not getting calls back, that's not an acceptable thing, and that needs to be expressed to your attorney. Make sure that on the front end, you establish those communication guidelines. So up front, you know that when you call, you're going to get a return call within a certain amount of time, that kind of thing. So you need to understand how your attorney wants you to communicate with them. Do they want you to, is it easier to get hold of them by phone, by email, like with us with a client portal, so that they have access to that kind of wherever they are, as well as the attorney's policy, because often there are written policies in place on how they're going to return your calls and your messages.
Exactly. And another thing that is really important, number 2. So number 1 is how are you and your attorney or their staff going to communicate? But number 2 is fees. And I think we all agree that fees are really important. There shouldn't be this mystery surrounding them. You need to know what your fees are. And by that, I don't mean that often attorneys get the question, well, how much is this going to cost? Well, sometimes the answer really is, it depends, especially if someone is billing by the hour. So, and in a divorce case, because you don't know what's going to happen. But you need to know, is your lawyer going to charge you a retainer up front? How does that work? What does that look like? How will that replenish? Things like that. Whenever you are, by replenish, I just mean when you're running low, how are they going to refill that? Are they going to send you a bill? Is it automatic? Will they stop work off, completely, or slow down if you're not, there when they need you to be there? Does the lawyer bill hourly? Most attorneys are going to bill a certain amount by the hour. Some attorneys, we do a flat fee. The way we offer services, it is better for flat fee. We're able to actually tell you upfront exactly, start to finish, how much the service we are offering is going to cost. Again, hourly and other services, you can't necessarily do that, but you need to ask your attorney how they bill. I get really surprised by the amount of people that I talk to. A lot of times they're either, they have maybe gotten a divorce and then they're coming back to do something in their divorce, maybe modify support or custody. And they had no idea how much their attorney was charging them. They didn't know their hourly rate. And then they got surprised at the end of the month or whenever, when they get this huge bill that they weren't expecting. And so make sure that you ask. They should tell you, but if they don't, ask your attorney what you're going to be charged and what things you're going to be charged for. Is it going to cost you to return their phone call? Is it going to cost you to send them an email? The answer is probably yes, but you need to ask and ask how that works. You need to also find out how you're going to be billed. So are they going to email you? Is it going to be by snail mail? Is it an invoice? Is it an auto draft? You need to know those things. You need to know the frequency. Are they going to be billing you monthly, weekly, bi-weekly? These things are negotiable. Not always. Some attorneys may not budge, but just keep in mind, you can ask. You can ask for these things. So make sure to try to make sure it's a good fit for you. But you're also going to want to know, and this is fee. This goes under fees a little bit because it may vary. So you're going to want to know who you're going to be working with. At larger firms, there's typically levels of people that you're working with. By that I mean there's a lawyer, there's a paralegal, there's a secretary, and usually they all bill for their time. And so they're billing at different rates because they have different levels of experience. And so you want to know, who are you going to be working with? Who do you contact for certain things? And what does that look like fee-wise? How much are you going to be paying with each individual you're working with? So that way you can budget and you can consider those things.
Exactly. And number 3, do you have a client agreement with your attorney, and what does it say? First of all, you should always have a written and detailed contract with your attorney. That is step number 1. If you don't have one, that's the first thing that you need to ask for, because otherwise it's, if it's too vague, you're just getting those bills and you don't have any guidelines. You don't have anything in writing about what your relationship with your attorney is. You're just paying them to represent you, and you don't really know what the parameters, what the parentheses are about here's what they're doing for you and here's how they're going to provide their services. So you should always have a written and detailed contract with your attorney. That's to protect both you and your attorney. So I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are people out there that don't have a written contract, but you need to make sure that you do have a written contract with your attorney. That written agreement, sometimes it's called a fee arrangement, sometimes it's called a client representation agreement, sometimes it's called a contract or an engagement letter. There are different ways that we say that contract, that we call it different things, but that agreement, it should detail the relationship that you have with your attorney. It should include payment information, like Brooke said in step number 2, how much you're going to be paying, what the fees are. It should include the services the lawyer will perform for you. Anything that's not included should be in that contract. So, for example, with us, with O'Brien and Moore, MyVirtual.Lawyer here in Arkansas, we specifically say that we don't represent you in court. We don't appear in court with you. That kind of thing should be in that agreement. Excuse me. And it should generally outline the relationship and any specific things for your particular case. A lot of times people use kind of a blanket agreement, and it should be kind of have a general directions for how you end that relationship, whether that's you or the attorney. Oftentimes you'll see something that says the attorney's allowed to end the relationship if you don't communicate or if you don't provide information, but there should be ways that you're allowed to end the relationship as well. And those should be clear directions so that you know exactly, how it's possible to end the relationship, and what rights the attorney has to end the relationship as well.
Right. And you also should know, the fourth one is you should know the plan. You should know the strategy. Not only do you want to find out from your attorney, okay, do I have a case? What are my rights? What am I entitled to in this divorce? You also need to know what their plan of action is. So it's the lawyer's job to use his or her, what Laura says, legal brain, and I like that phrase, to create a strategy that's going to really support you and best support you in your legal matter. But you should be involved in the process, or at least in the know. It may be tempting just to say, okay, well, I'm overwhelmed. Just take all this stuff from me and do it all. And the lawyer says, oh, I got it. Don't worry. Just, let me handle it. But knowledge really is power. So, you really do need to know what's going on, and you don't need to give all your power away to the attorney, because this divorce is, specific to you. This is unique to you, and this is important to you. So it should be important to the attorney. Do keep in mind, though, that sometimes the plan changes, especially in divorce. So, as the case moves along, strategy may shift a little bit, different things may happen, but an experienced lawyer is going to be able to foresee those things, and at least on the front end, identify some of those possible problems, and they need to be communicating that to you so that you can prepare for that early on. And then if your lawyer comes out guns blazing initially, I'm going to say that is a huge red flag unless it's absolutely necessary in your case. We do understand some situations you're like, I need a bulldog to go in and handle this because my spouse is this way, or, you're already in that situation and this is, what's needed. But generally, that is not what most divorces need. That is very problematic. So, for an example, in a divorce case, a lot of people go in, we hear from a lot of people that they'll go in and they'll tell their attorney that here are the things that we agree on, here are the things that we don't agree on. But then the lawyer says, well, we're going to just ask for everything because we're going to have leverage and negotiate. That is terrible, because then when your spouse gets that, they're going to be like, okay, well, we're all the things we agreed on. Then they're thinking you're trying to pull something on them. And then they may not have intended to get an attorney involved. It may have been amicable, or even if an attorney is involved, they may end up becoming a lot more aggressive, and it may be drawn out and create unnecessary conflict. And to be real honest, if I were you, I would be concerned and question the motive of that attorney, especially if they're going to bill you by the hour, because they're obviously incentivized for it to go on a little bit longer monetarily. And not that that's always the case, but that's a huge red flag for me.
Yes. And number 5, the last thing that we suggest that and you talk about with your attorney is, what is the process? What can I expect? Not just about what Brooke just mentioned in step number 4, where, what's the plan and strategy, but what's the process, the actual, here's where we start, here's where we end. Just because you hired a lawyer, like she said, doesn't mean that you don't need to know what's going on. So your attorney should detail the whole process and explain exactly how it's going to happen and different things that could happen along the way that might shoot you off in different directions. You should know at the start a reasonable amount of time before any major milestones, like there's a hearing coming up for, let's say that you do have children and you have a temporary support hearing or a temporary custody hearing or something like that. You need to know what that process is. You need to know kind of what timelines to expect. You need to know that things are being filed. I'm filing, questions called interrogatories right now. This is kind of what I'm doing. Otherwise, it's going to add to your stress. So when you're going through a divorce, just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, when you're going through a divorce, it's an emotional time. Often it's difficult. And, even when it's amicable, you're still ending a relationship and you still are going through things that are emotional and stressful. Your lawyer should not add to your stress. There is no reason for them to add to your stress. They're supposed to be helping you through the process and getting you, a good outcome, but not necessarily making you, all jittery and anxious about everything. So you should know what to expect. You should know what can possibly happen. You should know what all your options are. You should be fully prepared for things. You should know how much you're paying, all that kind of thing. All that information should be very transparent for you. And you can ask those questions of your attorney. So we just encourage you to ask those questions along the way, definitely up front, but along the way if you need clarification on things as well.
Absolutely. So just to recap, the 5 things that you do need to make sure that you are talking to your divorce lawyer about. 1, how the attorney and staff is going to communicate and work with you, how you'll interact. 2, what fees are involved. 3, 3, does your lawyer have a client agreement? I forgot about the client agreement. 4, what's the plan and strategy? And 5, what is the process that you're going to go through? But thank you guys today for joining us. We are here on every Tuesday at 11:30 Central Time for Legal Talk Tuesday. We're going to keep with the theme for divorce, and we'll be here next week. Thank you.